In this video, I will prove that God is real. His word is true, and his precepts are eternal. God told the end from the beginning, and then he sealed it. Jesus was the only one found worthy to open all 7 seals. If you read this book and study it using only the faith of a child, the wisdom of an adult, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit, Jesus himself becomes your only teacher. When you do this, he will show you the seals, what they mean, what they represent, how they work, and it'll teach you new concepts of things right below the surface. It teaches you a new way to look at the scriptures, a different perspective, so that you see things that you didn't see before. When you learn from the lessons that are hidden behind this tutorial, this is a self-paced correspondence course from God. When you learn what's behind the tutorial, behind those 7 seals, you start to learn concepts, new concepts that resemble, reflect, represent other familiar concepts that would never look like they had anything to do with one another, let alone anything else. But it turns out they're all talking about the same thing. As you go along, you'll eventually be compelled to harmonize all of those different concepts into one single unified concept. When you do this, you'll be able to see time the way God and the prophets do, like the backdrop, the context of all prophecy. It's what they knew and saw and were looking at and talking about when they prophesied. Once you see what this looks like, prophecy will start to unfold before your eyes, and you will be able to see things that are going to blow your mind. I'm going to prove God is real by showing what he predicted back in the very beginning, when this book was first written, when God told Moses, because this is all in the book of Genesis, believe it or not. The way to see time the way that God and the prophets do, by harmonizing all of these concepts, you end up what I'm calling the almanac of the prophets. And I'm going to rebuild it for you step by step, layer by layer, so that you can understand how to read prophecy. The biblical principles of timekeeping are the root concept that all of those others connect to. Here you see the 7 years, the 7 times 7 years, and the 7 times 7 sevens illustrated for you. I've laid them out with these color codes and numbers in order to introduce the first layer that we're going to put on top of this. This is a conceptual layer. It is the concept of seasons. Your planting, growing, harvest, and winter seasons. Those are laid out for you here. And you see that we go through 2 of these cycles in a 50-year period, and you see that the Jubilee is a respite from winter. These 7-year seasons are a metaphor for the socio-political influences over the people of Israel. The first 7-year period of the 50-year age sets the tone for the age. It represents the planting season, and the seeds that are planted are the policies that are enacted by the leadership. In the growing season, this is the implementation, or lack thereof, of those policies. The third season is your harvest season. It is the cumulative results of the first two seasons. If you have sound policies and they are properly enacted, you will have good results. And this will lead to a positive judgment in the winter season, which falls right dead center in the 50-year age. It is a assessment period to judge what has come before so that you can repeat the cycle one more time and see if you can do a better job than you did in the first fruits for the second fruits. You might think that if the Israelite people stopped counting time this way, that these cycles would be disrupted. However, that's not the case. These are metaphysical laws. They stand firm no matter what. And this is how we're going to be able to identify the lost tribes, because we will know what they do and what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it. Because the next layer that we're going to put on top of this is the personification of these seasons. If you haven't guessed it already, these are your four horsemen of the apocalypse. They have counterparts in the Old Testament, and they are the leaders of the divisions of the armies of Israel. If you read this grid column by column, the first column is the summary of the personal profiles of the patriarchs of the tribes that led the armies. And if you read from column to column, you will see the similarities of the progressions of these different concepts. And if you read this row by row, you will see how all of the different concepts connect to each of the seasons. This personification of the seasons is what turns the timekeeping principles into the Almanac of the Prophets. The entire saga of the tribes of Israel now becomes one complete, cohesive metaphor for the passage of time. Everything that they are recorded to have done and everything that is prophesied about them for the future is all part of what you're looking at when you see the timeline. Now that you know how to understand those four numbers as you watch and you go along, all those conceptual ideas repeating one after the other. That's the flow of time as recorded in our history since the Bible was written. Now that you understand how the almanac works, let's put it to work for us by plotting a prophecy. We'll take a single verse from the blessings of Jacob, Genesis chapter 49, verse 17. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. This hidden prophecy is packed with information that's only visible when viewed through the lens of the almanac. The road and the path are two different courses one can follow, and one is larger than the other. As you look at the timeline, you see the seasonal progression has been laid out in two different levels, one larger than the other. This tells us that Dan will strike on both levels during his time of influence. The horse and rider are references to the 7-year periods surrounding Dan's 7-year period of judgment at the center of each age. This is that pivotal period midway through the age where they take stock of the first fruits so that they can make fine-tuning or whatever is necessary to the policies going forward for the next cycle. However, instead of being an objective arbitrator, we find that our judge has a vendetta against Judah. When he bites at the horse's heels so that the rider tumbles backwards, he is accusing Judah for the state of the economy. God told the end from the beginning. He told us exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and precisely when it would happen. When you follow the tutorial and go through all the exercises yourself, you'll learn the why behind all of it. But that would take a whole nother video. Now that you've seen what the almanac is and what it means and how to use it, and we've seen the demonstration of its accuracy, it's time for you to take a look at the next 300 years and see what you can make of the rest of history and what is to come.